When society collapses, people think it'll look like chaos, smoke, fire, and looters in the streets. But it doesn't start that way. It starts with silence, the kind that hums under your skin, the kind that makes you realize nobody's coming to fix this. In those first hours, people cling to routine like it's a life raft. They still make coffee, they still check their phones, they still think this is temporary, because the mind refuses to accept how fast normal can disappear. That's the real danger. Not the collapse itself, but the pause that follows, the hesitation, the belief that things will go back to the way they were if you just wait a little longer. And that pause is where most people die. They wait for news that never comes. They stand in lines that never move. They go to sleep trusting that someone, somewhere, is still in charge. But collapse doesn't negotiate. It doesn't wait for you to understand it. It simply removes the systems that kept you alive and watches what you do next. And here's the truth most people never grasp. The first week of collapse isn't about survival. It's about selection. The people who act, who move, who adapt, they aren't necessarily stronger. They're just quicker to bury the old world. They stop asking, when will it end, and start asking, what do I do now? Because when the lights go out and the noise stops, hesitation is the loudest sound you can make. And the world listens. The 90% who die in the first week don't fall to violence or hunger. Not yet. They fall to disbelief, to waiting, to thinking someone will still answer when they call for help. But the grid doesn't care. The water doesn't flow. The system doesn't reboot. And the longer they wait, the smaller their world becomes, until it's just them, the dark, and the realization that they've been left behind. Meanwhile, the ones who live aren't superheroes. They're quiet, observant, cold in the right ways. They take inventory, not comfort. They turn every sound into information, every object into a tool, because they understand something the rest don't. When the world ends, you don't survive by being strong. You survive by being different, by letting go of the idea that someone's coming to save you, by realizing you're already the only one left. When everything stops, people don't panic right away. They organize. They check on neighbors. They make plans. Because trust, not strength, is what civilization runs on. And it's the first thing that kills you when it's gone. The moment the grid dies, your instincts lie. You tell yourself this is just another blackout. You wait for the hum of the refrigerator, the glow of the phone screen, the sound of the world correcting itself. But nothing comes. And in that waiting, the clock starts counting down. The trust trap works like this. You believe help is coming, so you stay put. You wait for information. You look for leadership. You follow voices that sound certain. But certainty dies faster than power. The people you trusted, the government, the networks, the systems, they were never built for zero. They were built for maintenance, not absence. And when they vanish, so does the illusion that someone's still steering the ship. The sound of static fades, a radio hums but says nothing. By the time people realize no one's in control, the damage is done. The stores are already empty. The roads are already blocked. The neighbors have already turned their questions into suspicion. Trust becomes a liability. Because the same instincts that built society now get you killed. You share food. You reveal what you have. You check on others, hoping they'll do the same. But desperation doesn't keep promises. Someone always asks what you have left. Someone always says, we'll split it. And someone always means, I'll take it. In collapse, morality is a luxury item, traded away the moment hunger arrives. Visual. A lone man looking out his window as his street goes dark, voices whispering outside. The ones who survive day one don't trust noise. They don't join the crowds gathering around dead screens and government trucks. They stay still, observe, and think. They understand the new equation. Every person you meet is a variable. Every conversation is a risk, and every noise is a signal to someone who's hungrier than you are. The trust trap kills more people than thirst or violence ever could, because it convinces you that safety still exists, that there's still structure in chaos, that someone, somewhere, is still in charge. But there isn't. There's only you, and the ones who already figured that out. Soft static fades. The last sound. A door quietly locking. Narrator, calm, final. In the first 24 hours, it's not your enemies you have to fear. It's your expectations. You can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water. But after just 1 day, your mind starts to break before your body does. This is the thirst line, the invisible point where survival stops being strategy and starts being instinct. When the power dies, the pumps stop, the taps hiss, and the water that once filled every sink, every glass, every shower becomes memory. Most people don't notice right away. They drink the last of what's left in the fridge. They open bottled water meant for emergencies, never realizing the emergency already started. By the second day, dehydration sets in. Quietly. Your lips crack. Your thoughts slow. You tell yourself you're fine. You aren't. People begin to panic when they realize water doesn't store itself. They drink what's left. Tap water, melted ice, even rain from gutters. Some boil it. Most don't. And that's where the real death begins. Contaminated water doesn't just make you sick, it ends your chance of recovery. Diarrhea, fever, infection. The body turns against itself. No hospital, no antibiotics, no second chances. By day 3, the unprepared start collapsing, not from violence, but from the very thing they thought would always be free. The survivors, the quiet ones, prepared differently. They filled bathtubs before the pressure died. They sealed bottles. They used bleach, iodine, and filters, tools mocked as paranoid when the lights still worked. They knew water isn't a resource. It's a clock, and once it runs out, the countdown begins. The thirst line divides the world into 2 kinds of people, those who drink anything to live, and those who live because they didn't drink everything. Every collapse reveals the same pattern. The first to panic are the first to poison themselves. The first to adapt are the ones who understand that thirst is a signal, not a death sentence. It tells you to move, to act, to think ahead before thinking hurts. And the cruelest truth of all is this: most people don't die from dehydration. They die from disbelief. Because even as their bodies fail, they're still waiting for the tap to turn back on. In the end, water doesn't care who deserves it, only who understood it first. By the 4th day, the city changes. Not visually, audibly. The hum of life is gone, no cars, no chatter, no music, only sound that matters and sound that kills. The people who survive the first 3 days are the ones who learn to listen. Because in collapse, silence isn't empty. It's information. Every footstep means movement. Every clang means discovery. Every scream means opportunity or danger, depending on where you stand. And most people don't know when to shut up. Noise is the first war after order falls. You don't fight it with bullets. You fight it with absence. The loud ones die first. They light fires. They call out for help. They play music to feel normal. But normal is gone, and so are they. The moment you reveal you exist, you become a resource. To someone hungry, someone desperate, someone listening. The survivors understand this instinctively. They move like shadows. They open doors slow. They cook nothing that smells. They speak only when necessary, and never indoors with the lights on, because collapse rewrites the laws of survival. Light is noise. Smell is noise. Even hope is noise. It makes you take risks you shouldn't. The longer you live in silence, the more you realize how dangerous it is to be heard. Every sound is a message, and every message has a receiver. By day 4, the cities are full of them. Wanderers, scavengers, survivors turned hunters. People who once asked for help now listen for it. They follow noise the way wolves follow scent, and they don't always come for violence. Sometimes they just come to take what you have: food, water, shelter, safety. Sometimes they don't even mean harm. They're just desperate. And desperation doesn't knock. The quiet ones win this war. Not because they're fearless, but because they're willing to disappear. They trade comfort for invisibility, warmth for darkness, company for control. Because in the noise war, survival isn't about fighting. It's about not being found. By the 5th day, people stop screaming. Not because they've been saved, bewed, but because they've learned that sound doesn't bring help anymore. Now they whisper. Now they trade. The collapse doesn't erase economy. It rewrites it. Food becomes currency. Water becomes gold. Medicine becomes myth. And trust becomes debt. This is the weak trade, the market of desperation, the moment people start exchanging their future for one more night of comfort. They trade batteries for food, painkillers for protection, tools for warmth, and the smart ones, the quiet ones, trade nothing they can't replace. Because in the new world, everything has a price, and the highest price is being noticed. By now, the cities have learned what they really are. Not safe zones, not homes, but bazaars of the dying. Every transaction carries a risk. If you show what you have, you paint a target on yourself. If you give too much, you lose leverage. If you refuse, you make an enemy. The ones who survive the weak trade understand balance. They barter like ghosts, seen but never remembered. They don't talk about where they live. They don't trade everything at once. And they never return to the same place twice. But most people can't help themselves. They crave comfort even when it kills them. They'll trade safety for company, supplies for the illusion of normal. Because in collapse, hope is the most expensive thing to buy and the easiest thing to sell. By the end of the first week, you start to see patterns. The ones with too much die quickly. The ones with too little die slower. And the ones in between, the traders, the observers, keep moving just enough to stay alive. That's the weak trade, the economy of endings. It doesn't deal in money. It deals in mistakes. By the end of the first week, the noise has stopped. The fires burn lower. The voices are gone. And what's left are the few, the 10%. They aren't heroes. They aren't stronger, smarter, or luckier. They're simply the ones who stopped waiting for the world to come back. They buried the old rules. Fast. They stopped asking when things would go back to normal because they understood something the rest couldn't. Normal was the first casualty. The rule of 10% isn't about fitness. It's about flexibility. The mind that adapts before the body fails. The ones who survived didn't fight the collapse. They absorbed it. They listened more than they spoke. They moved less, but moved right. They spent less time asking why, and more time asking how. By day 7, the survivors have learned the rhythm of silence. They ration by instinct. They move when the wind covers their steps. They sleep in shadows, not in comfort. And they understand the truth, that survival is a cycle, not a finish line. The 10% don't celebrate living through the week. They mourn the part of themselves that didn't, the part that trusted, the part that hesitated, the part that needed permission to adapt. That version is gone, and what remains is something quieter, sharper, simpler, visual, a small campfire dying out, smoke drifting upward. Collapse doesn't create monsters. It reveals them, and sometimes it refines them. You don't survive because you're fearless. You survive because fear finally started working for you instead of against you. The rule of 10% means this: only a few ever learn that civilization was the illusion, and survival was the truth. They walk slower now. They trust less. They eat in silence, drink sparingly, and watch the horizon like it's alive, because they've seen what happens when comfort collapses. And they know this world doesn't restart. It just resets.